So yesterday, or it could have been a week ago, or it could have been 4 months ago, because time is a little bit irrelevant these days. Michelin announced some stars, their Bib Gourmand, and I was completely caught off guard because I thought we were still just like doing takeout to support our peeps. I don't know what's happening, but luckily, Nycci Nellis from Industry Night is here. She, of course, has Industry Night on Real Fun DC. You can catch it every weekday night. Nycci Nellis, what's going on? How you doing?
Hey, how are you guys? A
We're
little a
good.
little tired after staying up to watch the Oscars last night, but
You have to
the
break
other
down this.
stars.
You have to break down, yeah, the other stars, the food stars, because this came out, Tommy. It was last week, by the way.
Okay. Could have been yesterday. I don't know.
It was Thursday. It was Thursday.
The announcement that a bunch of restaurants got stars and some maintained their stars, and like the Michelin guide came out, and like over the weekend, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to go to one of these restaurants, and I try to book reservations. Not happening for the next couple of months.
Yeah, very true.
So
Very
can
true.
you just break down like the mystery behind, I know, like you have a front row seat, like the mystery behind it, how it works, how this all came down. Give us the scoop.
So here's the deal. I mean, so the Michelin Guide inspectors announced their awards. They announced a couple of weeks ago that they were coming out with their awards. Most people in the food world knew about it. They do the plate, the bib, the star, and now they have a new one called the Green Star. And they decided to keep this up during the pandemic. This is a business, right? Like, I just think everybody has to remember, Michelin is not about like the restaurants or supporting the restaurants. They weren't one of the organizations during the dearth of the pandemic being like, support your restaurants. Like, that's not who this company is. So all this sort of mock, horror, and like, if you read a lot of other food press, not just locally, but nationally, about like what Michelin is doing, I don't know, you're just giving them more bandwidth, people. Like, that's the point. The point is to talk about what Michelin is doing, which
And
is
it's still
why
it's
every
the tire
year.
company, right? At the end of the day, it's the tire company.
Okay, so Tommy, I'll start from the beginning with you.
Please.
So Michelin originally launched their travel guide as an amenity because of they wanted people on the road to travel. This is years and years and years ago. So they had a guide, and it used to be a big, thick one, and people would take it with them as they traveled around to know where to go to eat. And so it started off really as an amenity, but then became this major thing. Mobile had a guide too here in the States. I mean, I remember as a kid driving to like Disney World with my parents, and my mom having this big mobile guide with recommendations of restaurants.
Yep.
Because we didn't have Google. You didn't have we didn't have cell phones. Like, you didn't know where, if you were really into eating and really wanted to try something different, you had to do your homework beforehand, or you had to have a book to take with you.
I feel like if you were a superhero, Nycci Nellis, this is your origin story we're getting right now. It all started when you were in the back seat and mom was going through the book.
And we stopped and we had roasted grapefruit, and it was life-changing. It's very true. It was really good. But the Michelin guide, obviously, because it was Europe-based, was way more extensive. And throughout the years, it has become this honor. And, DC just became a Michelin starred city only a couple of years ago. And that was at the behest of Patrick O'Connell at the Inn at Little Washington. I mean, he has been saying to them for years, come to DC. No, he wasn't saying that altruistically. He was saying that because he was like, hello, where are my stars? Because he is the only one outside the immediate DC area who has stars. They do not look at anybody else in Virginia. They don't look at anybody else in Maryland. It is just DC and the Inn at Little Washington. But at the end of the day, they are a tire company, Tommy. And even though they have this offshoot of this business model, it's not about the restaurants. And I think that's what people need to keep in consideration. But it is an amazing thing. And it's something that chefs and restaurateurs want. I mean, it's a very competitive field and people want to be a part of this. And the guide did, sort of celebrate the resiliency and culinary talent of the city. They gave 23 starred restaurants and 41 Bib Gourmand. So I'll break it down for you. So if you're in the guide, that's a plate. And a lot of restaurants are like, big deal, I'm in the guide. But honestly, not everybody's in the guide. So you want to be in the guide. The plate is good. And then you have the Bib Gourmands, which is supposed to be for more less expensive restaurants. It's sort of a new award because in the changing dining scene, especially in the States, you have all these like fast casual concepts, and they're not a traditional 12-course gastronomic experience. So, but they wanted to award them. So that's how you get the Bib Gourmand, which is still a big deal.
And what are some of the, hang on, Nycci, before you get to the next level, what are some examples of the Bib Gourmand ones that got hit?
So like Ellie up in Mount Pleasant has a Bib Gourmand. Queen's English has a Bib Gourmand. Chico has a Bib Gourmand. I mean, the restaurants that are really good have the Bib Gourmands. So but there are 41 of them, which is pretty great for our
awesome.
area.
And your coverage on the listareyoumwanted.com has the full list there. You can check them all out. We're scrolling your reporting on the bottom of the screen, but go to the listareyoumwanted.com to see all of the things Nycci's talking about.
Yeah. And then, I just want to remind everybody, like, this is good for DC. It is good to have the Michelin Guide here. When tourists come to DC, they have that Michelin Guide in their hand. And it elevates us as a dining city because, LA got theirs taken away. They're like, there's not enough good food here. You're out. So it is.
I'm sure Wolfgang Puck was outraged.
But it is a big deal. It is. It's a big deal. And it's a big deal that they decided to do it during a pandemic. And I can see why everybody's all like irate about it. But at the end of the day, they did give stars to restaurants that opened during the pandemic. And it's a big business boost for restaurants that have stars.
Yeah, I was surprised. We were talking off air. There's a restaurant in my neighborhood that got a star, Chiquette, and I've never been to it. And, I'm a foodie. I have supported restaurants during this whole craziness. And everyone in our neighborhood is kind of talking about it because it sort of came out of nowhere. Our neighborhood is a little bit sleepy. Glover Park, Cathedral Heights area is a little sleepy for the restaurant scene. And like, so how do restaurants like that like kind of like, the average person doesn't really know much about, get a star? Like, how does one get a star? Like, is it a campaign? Okay. Is it like, do you make some phone calls?
No, I wish it was that easy.
It's not the Oscars.
No, it's not the Oscars, and there's no major campaign, and there's no big billboards. It's like, come in my restaurant. No, it's really up to these secret judges. So all over the city, there are secret judges. And that goes for the James Beard Awards as well. So there are secret judges who go in and eat, and then they communicate with the big inspectors. And I believe, this part I'm not sure about, but I think the big inspectors then come. I don't know if they came this year or if they relied solely on their secret judges. Like, I'm not really sure how that worked out. But that's how it works. And anybody in this food industry knows about all the restaurants in the DC area. Like, you'd be hard pressed to name a restaurant to me that I'd be like, oh, like a really good restaurant. That I'd be like, yeah, never heard of it. Like, we don't have the breadth and depth, nor do we have the real estate to have that many restaurants, right? So like, good restaurants are known. And Danny Lito, who owns Chiquette, the restaurant you're talking about, had Slate Wine Bar downstairs. And honestly, even though I haven't eaten at Chiquette, I got to be honest with you, Kelly, it hits every marker for Michelin, right? It's like this big contemporary space, and it's this massive long meal. It's a multi-course gastronomic experience featuring the food of Valencia, with this, really fascinating wine list. So like, everything about I don't want to use the word precious because it's not the right word, but everything about like that, this experience sort of like totally falls in with Michelin. Do you know what I mean? Same thing with John. So like, Bresca has 1 star. Ryan Martino, his second restaurant, John, which opened during the pandemic and seats 12 people, that got 2 stars, which is really gobsmacking. I have to be honest with you. That's the same sort of experience. It's this gastronomic journey. It's 12 courses. Oh no, Jaunt is 18 courses.
Oh my God. Oh, by the way, completely booked until June, through June.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen. So we were talking off air. Like, so Ryan Rotino is also on Industry Night. After I had the North American chief inspector.
Yes. How'd you get the chief inspector on? If how did that happen?
I mean, Tommy, I called Michelin and I was like, "Hey, does he want to come on the show?" And they said yes. I mean, I've had them on every year since Michelin has been in DC. They've come on one of my shows.
Nycci's the queen of the food industry. No one says no to Nycci. That's how it happened.
Well, totally.
But you know who I am.
It's amazing. And so the chief inspector is on anonymously. Did they have like one of those like voice changer things, or how did you talk to them?
Yeah, I couldn't see. I mean, I have to be honest. I was really sort of taken off guard by that. I was like, who am I talking to? They're like, you're talking to the chief inspector. I was like, what's his name or her name? And they were like, anonymous. I was like, oh, really? Like, that's how we're doing this. Okay. I was like,
and you're like, no, but for real, like, I can do it too. And they're like, no, really, Nycci. It's
right. No. So that's what they did. And
did the inspector have an accent, or were they specifically changing their voice?
No, they didn't even change their voice, but I didn't recognize it. I don't think they were States. So
I want to start a rumor that like, haha, it's Jose Andres this whole time.
Yeah. So anyway, but that's how I got them on the show. It wasn't hard. But I think it's important to them that they get their message out. And, they talked about, like, he and I talked about, why doing it in the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, he had his answers, and I'm not going to say that they weren't interesting, but to me, I was like, yeah, all I'm hearing here is we wanted to do what we want to do. And that's what they did.
So it wasn't the message of like, we wanted to support the food industry, the restaurant industry in DC. We know it's been hit hard, and this is why we did decide to do it this year.
No, it wasn't about people being hit hard. No, not at all. It was more about, like, we want to celebrate the resiliency.
Okay.
Resiliency was said multiple times. Like, and I asked about to-go and how they use that. But I just think at the end of the day, they didn't do it last year, and they were like, we're doing it this year. That's what's happening. So, and like we said, it is a boost. I mean, nobody got any stars taken away. A couple of Bib Gourmands, though, got taken away, which I thought was really interesting. But and they recognized a lot of really new restaurants. Like, I can't pronounce the restaurant correctly, El Cielo, which opened in La Coseca in the Union Market District. Yeah. And that, again, falls right into their hands, right? It's this, like, 12 course, they wash your hands in chocolate, like this whole, like...
They do what now?
I know. I'm going Thursday night. They wash your hands in chocolate. I'm like, what? I don't understand. But everybody who's gone there is like, it's amazing. So,
like, figuratively in chocolate or actually in chocolate?
No.
But you're not supposed to lick your fingers these days. Did they wash the chocolate off of your hands?
I will report back to you, Tommy.
Please, I like to know. Is it milk chocolate? Is it white chocolate? Is it dark chocolate?
Well, if it's if it's any other chocolate but dark chocolate, we have a problem.
Right. Like, washing your hands in milk chocolate does not seem like a great idea.
No, but anyway, but you get my point, right? These are the things that Michelin loves, right? They just love these, like, effete, sort of just out of the way, different kinds of experiences. Now they say, like, they don't really judge service, which I'm always surprised by because that's such an enormous part of your meal.
Yes.
Yeah. And they don't really judge, like, the ambiance. Like, the main thing is what's on the plate. That's what they say, that it's all about what's on the plate.
Do they judge the kind of plate? I'm being a smartass.
No. But you have a good point. I mean, I think they're looking at, for the aesthetic of the plate, how it's plated and executed, and then how it tastes. I mean, that's what they say.
There used to be, I don't know if it was rumor or whatever, that like you didn't get a Michelin star unless you had a white tablecloth, which was like sort of the traditional way of the fancy restaurants. I don't know that it's probably gone away because that's kind of old school. But I wanted to ask you, do you know any of the judges? Like, you are so ingrained in the food scene. I got to believe you've stumbled. Really?
I don't.
Oh, come on.
I really don't. I mean, I have guesses on who the judges are, but I don't. I really don't know who the judges are.
Because it's got to be someone you know, right? Because you're so active in the food scene. Like, how could you not?
know
No.
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my suspicions on a couple of people, but I don't know. They're very secretive. It is not transparent.
Do they get
I don't know who
paid?
those are.
Do they get paid, or is it just bragging
assume-
rights?
No, well, you can't brag.
Yeah, you can't brag.
Right, but so how do they tap you on the shoulder? Like, is it like how the CIA recruits people? I mean, like, it's so secretive.
Well, I think it has to do with people who really dine out a lot, right? So, and in this day and age, there are a lot of people who are very public about their dining. Now, I would assume Michelin would not want people who are public about dining because they don't want people, like, I can't be a Michelin judge, right?
Right.
People know who I am. I'm friends with a lot of restaurateurs and chefs and a lot of people in the food community. So, I mean, I'm not going to say I get special treatment, but I
You get special treatment.
I could have a different experience than some people, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's totally not the point. The Michelin judge is supposed to be secret because they're supposed to go in and have this really organic, authentic experience. You know, if you're Nycci Nellis, you're not getting that. You better not be.
Unapologetic. I love it.
You can catch all of the Michelin content and all the Michelin coverage on the listareyounit.com. New episode of Industry Night tomorrow night at 7:00 East, right here on Real Fun DC, where Nikki's going to talk to the chief inspector. Right. Chief inspector.
But I do want to say, I talked to the chief inspector. I talked to Ryan Rotino about what it's like to get those stars and what it means for his business. It's really a great interview. And then later in the show, we get your Mother's Day ready. We talk with Daniel Leapson of Lindera Farms. He does amazing. He's a forager and he makes his own vinegars, and it's really fabulous. So
wow,
it's a good show.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, 7:00. All of Nikki's past shows are up on demand on the Real Fun DC app. You can search Industry Night anywhere you get your podcasts. And of course, check out the listareyounit.com to learn more. Nikki, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
With Willie Water from WSSC Water. Are you excited about Drinking Water Week? Willie doesn't talk. All right, May 2nd through the 8th, we've got Drinking Water Week happening. And when you go to realfundc.com/waterfund, you're going to learn all about the work WSSC Water does to help support our neighbors who can't afford their water and sewer bills. And get $100 restaurant gift cards from local awesome eateries. So we're helping out neighbors, we're helping out restaurants, and you're having a great meal. How awesome for Drinking Water Week. Go to realfundc.com/waterfund.